You are watching the End of the Flow podcast, Sleeveless Edition. All right, so here we are with another End of the Flow podcast, Sleeveless Edition, with the man, the legend. Yeah, there you go. See, now we got it.
All right,
I forgot
I'm
to
in
tell you
Hargis
that's mandatory. There you go. The man, the legend, Chris Deulen. How you doing, buddy?
Doing all right, hanging in there.
Yep, same here. So now you're out in Colorado, correct?
Yep, I'm in Denver, Colorado.
Okay.
Yep, I was in Castle Rock for about 5 years.
Okay.
I went into business with Shawn, Gavin, actually.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was this late 2013. I was living in Kansas City, and I started a window cleaning business out there called Green Team Window Cleaning.
Okay.
I was a lot more hippie. I had like a huge garden in the back and everything, and I made a relationship with a restaurant and cleaned their windows for free, but they gave me all their vegetable oil. Because I had converted, I had this 1984 Mercedes-Benz 300 SD turbo diesel.
Yep.
I converted to run on waste vegetable oil.
Nice.
And so I threw like a ladder rack on top of that. And so that was like my work vehicle. So I'd drive around town, like puttering veggie oil fumes out the back and cleaning windows with like a 32-foot ladder on top.
Nice.
Yeah.
Whatever it took for the hustle, man.
Yeah, for sure. So that's kind of like, where I cut my teeth out there on window cleaning. I first started window cleaning in like 2004. The first time that I cleaned, I worked for a company out here in Denver, actually called Student Window Cleaners. A friend from my college had got me into it.
Is that kind of like the student painter thing where you get reduced rates to have people that are students that are learning?
No, it was just a locally owned name. That's just what they named it.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think it had been around since like 1914, or like maybe not that long, since like the squeegee had been invented. It'd been around a long time.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been around a long time and changed hands, ownership like 5 or 6 times, I think. So that's like where I got introduced to it. They just called themselves Student Window Cleaners. You didn't get anything out of it. I think it was just a marketing tool.
Gotcha.
He actually changed it to Blue Sky today. I gave him a call when I moved back out here in 2014. So, but yeah, so that's kind of where I got started. And in 2013, so that was in 2011, 2013, we were driving through, my wife at the time and our kids, we were driving through Colorado, and we had friends out here, because we had lived out here before. I went to college out here and everything. And so we moved away in 2007, and now we're driving back through 2011 or 2013, sorry, getting numbers mixed up. And we told our friends, hey, you should have like a winter solstice party. That would be cool. So then like on the 22nd, we drove through and they were having this party. And at the time, Shawn, Gavin didn't have his goatee. So he was just clean shaven and looked like me. I walked into the party and his youngest kid, Halem, walks up and he's like, oh, hey, Dad. Oh, sorry. And like turns around and goes the other direction. And I was like, that's weird. As the night drug on and we talked to like people throughout the party, one after another, people would be like, you look exactly like that guy downstairs. And it was just weird. And so finally went downstairs and met Shawn, and I was like, hey, how's it going? He's like, oh, good. And I was like, so what do you do for work? And he's like, oh, I make and design window cleaning equipment. How about you? And I was like, oh, I own a window cleaning business. And he's like, cool. So we chatted, and he was like, man, you should move out here. The market's huge. There's an influx of people. There's not enough window cleaners to keep up. And I was just really struggling in Kansas, because the economy just it's just kind of crap out there, thanks to Brownback's policies. But I won't talk about that. So we came through. We were going to move to California, close to my dad.
Wow.
My dad lives in Southern California. And as soon as we told him this story about the party, he was like, "Oh my God, you guys should move to Colorado again. You shouldn't move out here. You should move out there." And we were like, "That's weird too." Okay. So within 2 months, we were back. I was back out. I think, well, Shawn and I talked over the phone. Initially, we called the company Clean Tech, but there's another company out of New York that has sued other companies as they have expanded across the US that we found out. So we quickly changed it to Outshine. And my logo, which I think, I mean, you can see on my Facebook page. Oh, you can see it on my shirt too. If you've ever called Tucker and had to have a technical question, you've probably spoken with Travis, who's like his right-hand man in the warehouse. He's a super rad guy. He's always there. I don't even call. I just show up and Travis is there and he comes out and helps me with my equipment. But he came up with that logo. So
interesting. Okay.
That's where the logo came from. So yeah, but man, that year Shawn didn't have Tucker yet at the time. He just had RHG. He wasn't in the pole business yet. He was reselling gardeners, I think, and he had RHG and the system. So like I think one of his original, maybe not original, but one of his earlier line fill and goes. So like when I showed up, like there was a van waiting, he outfitted me with stuff, like he totally invested in me, and like I wouldn't be where I'm at today without his help initially.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I think that he thought at the time, I don't know, maybe he can correct me if he watches this, but I think he thought at the time he'd have a lot more time on his hands to be able to like come out and clean with me and help outdoors or whatever. But RHG just kind of blew up that year. And he had this one small section of his current warehouse. And as the years have gone by, he's like knocked out walls and it's just gotten bigger and bigger.
I remember
so
seeing
those first 6 months, it was just all me. I was knocking doors, I was doing bids, I was cleaning windows, I was doing everything. His office manager did all my paperwork and stuff, all my invoicing. So it was super rad working with him to get started. But after 6 months, he was like, "I haven't helped you do anything. Why don't you just have the business?" And he essentially just gave me his portion.
Wow.
And then after a couple of years,
Shawn would do.
Yeah, he's a rad dude. And also, like, we were living in this weird apartment out here, and we'd been in my wife's parents' basement for the time that I started my business in Kansas, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we came out here, she's like, "I want an apartment on the top floor. I want to be able to see the sunset. I am tired of the basement, yada, yada, yada." Okay, that's great. Makes sense. Except we have a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. And it's one of those cheap apartments where they're just made of nothing,
Yep.
So despite our best efforts, putting everything down, we couldn't keep the old retired people underneath us from complaining nonstop. So like we essentially got evicted without like anywhere else to move for a month because the place we were getting wasn't finished being built. Well, Shawn put us up in his basement.
Wow.
For a month. So yeah,
very cool.
Pretty rad dude. And then, yeah, like I said, he gave me the business. I finished paying off, the fill and go and everything like a year or two later. And I actually just paid off the van. Like,
that's great.
A couple months ago, but I just got the title and registered in my name finally after like 5 years.
That's a good feeling.
Yeah. And whereas Kansas City had been mostly residential, and that's like where my bread and butter was. I had like over 200 A reviews on Angie's List when that was big at the time. When I came out here, I tried the same thing. I tried to build it up on residential, but commercial just kept coming my way. In fact, the guy that manages this building, the property manager, is the same guy that threw the party.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, his name is Matt. And so he's a good friend of mine too. I cleaned this building and I cleaned like 2 other of his buildings when I first moved out because he was like, "Oh, you moved out here? Hey, come give us a bid, on these buildings I manage." And so, really got lucky. Like you know, I understand that you can go out and just knock doors for businesses and get a ton of business that way. But I had a lot of help at the start. You know what I
Well,
mean?
you know, things are right place, right time.
They, yeah.
It has a lot to do with it being
Hmm.
in the right position.
Yep.
So, you know, it's not just luck. You have, yeah, some of the dominoes fell in line like you needed
For
to,
sure.
but
Yeah.
you know,
It's what you do
you
with it
still
too.
exactly. You have to be ready to take on that kind of growth or take on those opportunities, and again, be positioned in the right
Yeah.
spot to do that. And
Yeah.
you were positioned correctly, and then
Yeah.
that allowed the dominoes to fall in your favor.
And really, it was like the water-fed pole that helped me the most, you know? That video that I posted earlier this week,
Mm-hmm.
about the soap and everything, that was the first building I ever cleaned. And Shawn showed me how to clean on that building.
Wow.
Yeah. Um, and so it was just a money maker, you know, because I wasn't throwing this ladder around everywhere, you
Yep.
know, on these commercial properties and stuff. You just don't have to worry about it. Um, and then, yeah, so I was in that position. And then one day Matt calls, he's like, hey, this building maintenance company is going to call you. So be ready. They're going to give you the state capital. And I just
Wow.
kind of laughed. I was like, are you kidding me? Come on. Is this a joke? Like, where's the camera? Sure enough, this guy calls. Hello, Chris. My window cleaner broke his leg. I need a bid on these buildings. It's this guy, Eli, right? So he owns this building maintenance company. He's a Hungarian Holocaust survivor.
Okay.
And he does like the Boulder every year, which is like a 10K, I think, up in Boulder. Like he runs, he bikes, he's crazy. So you know, he's like, come meet with these guys at the Capitol. So I come and meet it, you know, as we're walking around. Shawn came actually to that one with me. But we're walking around and, you know, the contact at the time, Frank, turns to me and goes, oh, if you can keep it, you know, under 25 grand, the account's yours. Like what? I don't know how it gets easier than
24
that.
995. You got it, buddy.
That's what I did. That's what I did. Um, and you know, my wife at the time, she took I had another truck at this point. It was 1998 Dodge Ram 2500 Cummins turbo diesel that I converted to vegetable oil.
Nice, nice. I wouldn't expect anything less from you.
Of course, thank you. No clue what I'm doing. I have a degree in English, by the way. So, but just picked up a book and ordered a kit and did it. And it was a beast, man. We took that thing
Oh, I
rock
bet.
climbing everywhere, all over the place. So oh no, that's not the one that I had. It was the Mercedes. Yeah. My wife took it into this diesel place, and this guy just started talking about how he did high-rise window cleaning. And I didn't do high rise window cleaning. I was a rock
Okay.
climber. So I know how to get from down to up, but I didn't know how to get from up to down really, like in the way that you're supposed to do safely. I thought I did, but you don't know what you don't know, right?
Right.
So this guy, I sub out to him for like 2 years, and then the third year he's nowhere to be found. um, I don't know how I'm going to do these buildings. I'm like, okay, so I just start sort of Googling stuff, you know, and then you can start to learn what you don't know. Um, and I was like, oh, okay, it's called rope access, you know. And I came across SPRAT, which is the Society of Professional Rope Access Technicians. And just so happened there was a class going on like the next month or whatever down in the Springs, which was
Wow.
fortuitous because they're all over the country. You know, there's no guarantee that there's going to be a Sprat course in your city anytime
Uh-huh.
soon.
Yep.
So threw down my $1,600, drove down, you know, for a week, took the class, got my butt kicked, realized I didn't have any idea what I was doing, and I'm glad that I took this course. And then
For
started
sure.
working for him as well. So I cleaned, you know, a hospital. That was my first job.
Okay.
I cleaned this building. This is 5 stories. Yeah, and I just went from there. So I did high-rise window cleaning, and I did radome repair and cleaning for him. Um,
What's that?
So radome is a satellite dish housing unit, and it looks like a soccer ball. So
Okay.
you've probably seen them. It's like a soccer ball. It's like someone put a giant soccer ball on top of a tower. They're usually 100,
Yep.
100 feet up, and then the dome is usually 35 feet. That's the
Okay.
standard
So kind of
length.
like a small Doppler type of look to it, maybe.
Small what?
Doppler radar kind of.
Yeah, yep, it's radar. So it's used for like the FAA, and like we worked on one on the end of a naval vessel in Portland, Oregon. So
Oh
it was
wow.
this diesel ship that was built in the 60s. It was incredible, and it had a friggin' radome on the end of it, just sitting there like a big old dome. It was just mind blowing. So when we were dropping in on it from the top, you had to drop in and clean it and everything and check all the joints. And if there were rusted bolts, you had to replace them. And so I was bringing up like a hammer drill at times and stuff. And then you had to put it back on and caulk it and seal it, et cetera, et cetera. That was all like on the Columbia River.
Wow.
So yeah, I did a lot of interesting work and traveled all around the US.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like some of the stuff that I've done over the years where somebody has just asked, "Hey, can you do this? Or do
Yeah,
you do this?" And I'm like, "Well, um,
I can
yes."
pretend to do that until I can.
And let me figure this out.
Yeah,
And kind of like you said, you
yeah,
didn't know what you didn't know. And now looking back, there was some things I've done that I got lucky,
for
real
sure.
lucky.
Oh yeah.
Lucky I didn't screw something up bad, major.
Or kill
But then
someone
again,
or kill
yep,
yourself.
yep.
Yeah, dude.
But then again, you look back and you go, "Hey, that was the catalyst. That was the opportunity I needed to
Yeah.
move to where I'm at today." So it's
Yep.
interesting how all again those things lined up. But you were again positioned. You were and willing to spend money to get
Right.
your training that you needed and learn
Yeah.
what you needed to do. So you weren't just going to jump over the side of a building and go, "Yeah, well, I've done ropes before, so this should be
Yeah.
easy."
Exactly. Like it's not even the same kind of rope.
No
So
kidding. Interesting. Yeah. See,
no.
now that's something. That's the one thing in window cleaning I've never done. I've never done any type of drops. Never done any
Okay.
rope access or anything. And at my age, if I said I was going to do it, my wife would
Yeah.
all but kill me.
Yep.
She would maim me enough to where I wouldn't be able to get on a
Oh, for
building
sure.
to be able to do it. So
Yeah. It's a different type of window cleaning. It's very interesting. All the nuances involved, you know, because you can just imagine yourself like dangling in the air. Well, if you're standing on the ground and you push against a wall, you have a tremendous amount of pressure that you can apply there just because of your legs and gravity and everything.
yeah, true.
Well, if you're hanging, there's no ground, there's no wall, there's nothing to push against. So when you push, you're just sort of like, okay. First window is always the most difficult, usually because there's an overhang, but also because the closer you are to your anchor point, to the point where you're dropping off of, the stiffer the rope's going to be and the less movement you have. So
Okay.
the ability to move just isn't as viable up high. But then you get towards the bottom, you know, and you don't move around as much because you have a lot more control. You can just hold on to the frame while you clean it if you need to, or your suction cup, which is what you're usually using. But then there's all the other things involved, like how are you going to clean where the suction cup just was, you know?
Right.
If you
Right.
get good enough, you can like move it around. I know Adam Gollin's guys do a lot of that, and then hit the trigger right at the last second and then slap the squeegee in. So if you're good enough, you get it, but then you float way out in the air, So you better hope you did it right, because if you mess up, well, then you got to get back on it again. And yeah,
Yep.
it's a whole different game, man. It's like window cleaning all over again.
What's the tallest building you've ever done?
We do a building over here called the Centera building. It has Northwest Mutual on the side. It's on Colorado and 25, and that's 19 and a half stories, if you want
Okay.
to be precise. So
Yeah.
yeah, not that tall. Not
Well,
that
it's tall
tall.
enough for me.
It's tall. It's still freaking tall.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I
yep.
get on a rooftop now and 2, 3, 4 stories, and I look down. I'm like, oh, yeah, no, I'm good.
Oh yeah, butterflies. Yeah,
Nope.
man. I've gotten vertigo a couple times
No
just from
kidding.
like swimming pools and stuff. That's not very much fun.
But now, as much work as you've done on a rope, you're used to hanging off a building. But you
Yeah.
were when we were talking before we started, you said you get on a lift and you're doing some water fed work on the lift, and it's like
Yeah.
crazy scary.
Oh, it is. It's terrifying. That's probably like in the top three most terrifying things I've ever done.
Wow. And that's
And like I
including your
was saying,
rock climbing and building
yeah,
your rope
yeah.
acts, all that stuff.
Oh, totally. Totally. Because,
Wow.
and mostly because, like I was saying earlier, it was on that JLG like 60 tractor with the retractable arms that come out, and you got to pressurize them. I actually got stuck in the lift on that job too because it was tilted up on a slant and just ever so slightly. And when I got up in the lift, it tilted one of the legs up. So then the whole thing froze.
Yep.
And
I've been
I
there.
fortunately had, well, no, I had not brought a rope with me. And that was like always my rule. Of course, the one time I don't bring a rope. So I call my employee. Two of them show up. They like toss a string up to me or something and attach the rope to that. I pull the rope up, and then I had all my gear on, of course. I had my harness and I was connected. But then I, had to rappel down off of the top of the lift. So, and
Wow.
then we like had to sort of figure out how to override the system. But yeah, operating the pole, I was up 60 feet, I think, or close to 60 feet. And then my pole was out 35, 40 feet. Um,
Wow.
and yeah, and a breeze comes along and you
You're
could be going
puckering.
for a ride. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone.
No, I even get nervous when I got the 60-foot pole out and
Oh yeah.
I'm up 4.5 stories, and then a breeze comes along, and get really nervous when you're working the pole and it bows to the side because the wind is pushing it so
Yeah.
hard, and it's
Yep.
like,
And then you
oh
got to
boy.
walk over and like push against the wind. Yeah, I've
Yeah,
had to do that.
yeah,
That's
I
where
don't
like
like that.
yeah, no, dude, it's hard. The giant noodle is what I call it.
Yeah, yeah, and
Just a giant noodle.
big picture, it's a $2,500 pole. If I break it, yeah, it's gonna cost a little bit, but it's not like being up on a lift or anything. But I still get crazy nervous with it sometimes. So
Oh yeah. Yep. For sure, for sure. And plus a section is only like, $150,
yeah,
$200.
yep,
Um, you guys just have to wait for it. I can just go down and pick mine up.
right. Yeah, that's gonna be nice when you need something. You just shoot right over to Shawn's
Yep.
place and pick
Just
up what
shoot
you
right
need.
down to Tucker.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. I've got
Yeah.
family in Colorado Springs somewhere. I haven't been there in years. I think the last time I was in Denver, oh, that had to have been '06 maybe.
Okay.
It was
Oh man.
Denver, great place we had so much fun in Denver. It
Yeah.
was just it's a very welcoming town.
Uh-huh.
And we just kind of walked around and ended up going to a Rockies game. Just,
Nice.
just out of the blue. There's
Right.
like, oh, hey, there's a game going on, and it had already
Right.
started. So we go up and we're like, hey, what does it cost to get in the game? And they're like, no, it's already started, $5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
We
Yep.
just walked around, and then there was empty seats, so we ended up sitting on the first base side for a while, and yeah, it was it was
Nice.
it was super cool. Yeah, it was one of
Yeah.
the nicest vacations I'd ever taken. Was up to that.
Oh, that's great, man. Yeah. It's changed a lot.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like the whole city. I mean, when we left in into 2007 and then coming back in 2014, it was like mind blowing, night and
wow.
day almost, just because of the gentrification. Um, and some of it's good. A lot of it is like, oh, look, another mid-rise apartment complex.
Yeah,
And I didn't realize what was going on until one of my employees, a guy working for me earlier this year, was like, "Oh yeah, that's because investors like in New York and Chicago or outside of the U.S. even need a place to put their money because they have so much money that it's actually depreciating in value. And if they don't do anything with it, they lose money. That's how much money they have. And so
Wow.
to store it, they'll look for cities that are like up and coming where the real estate is booming. And that's what happened out here, especially after the legalization of marijuana. So they'll come in, purchase some old building, you know, that might have had like your favorite bike shop in it, or that rad coffee
Mm-hmm.
shop, or comic book store, you know, like all these
Yep.
local mainstays. They'll tear the whole thing down and they'll put up a mid-rise like mod apartment complex that they only have to fill to like 40% capacity because it's cheaper for them to maintain their investment than to have the rooms rented out. Like to have
Wow.
empty rooms that aren't depreciating in value from renters, and because the price of the real estate goes up. So it's like this whole huge scheme, and the mayor's like kind of in cahoots with it. Like I'm sure that there's some big money in his pockets because
Oh,
they
I'm
just
sure.
keep building everywhere, Kevin. It's like depressing.
Yeah. They did that up. I used to live in St. Joe, Michigan, which is right on Lake Michigan, and it's a summer lake town, you know.
Okay.
And let's see, trying to remember what year, 2009, 10, they had, were starting to try to put in this big golf course. And
Okay.
it's obviously done now, but it had the senior PGA there several years. It was going to
Whoa.
be there again this year
Uh-huh.
until they canceled for the COVID stuff.
Okay.
And a lot of it was in Benton Harbor, the actual city of Benton Harbor, even though it was mostly St. Joe investors that were, you know, trying to put it on. So there was a lot of stuff going back and forth that,
Sure.
like there was a beach area that had been gifted to the children of Benton Harbor from a family, a wealthy family that had been in town.
Okay.
And they were, even though they were, I'll say improving it, but it wasn't an improvement that was necessarily beneficial to, you know,
Right.
everybody.
Oh, for
Um,
sure. Yeah, then it just
but
becomes like an annexed section, you know, or like a
yeah,
location of privilege, you
yep.
know.
And but then once the money started,
Yep.
boom, all of a sudden it's done. You know, and it's a
Over.
pretty golf course. That's, that's great. But and
Yep.
then comes the hotels and all the other stuff that comes along with it, and it just,
Yep.
the feel of the whole city just left. That at one time St. Joe was on the top 10 list of small towns to visit in the United States because it just has that little quaint downtown, and there's the Lake Michigan right there. In the
Okay.
summertime, it was just, it was a great place to be. Now you can, between uh, Memorial Day and Labor Day, you couldn't pay me to come in there. We actually do, the hospital we do is in St. Joe, but we don't have to go near the
Yeah.
town. We can just kind of scoot down
Around St.
the
Joe.
back. Yep, and we come in that way.
Man, it's depressing.
It is, yeah.
It's like it's pretty, but it doesn't belong to you anymore.
Yep. Yeah. That's essentially what it ends up happening. But
Yep.
I guess more windows to clean is about the only.
That's that's the only upside. I was just saying that to my friends the other day. We were like just walking around getting some ice cream downtown, and they're like, "Well, that's a really pretty view, like in spite of all these other things, you know." And I was like, "Yep." And a lot of my business comes from that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. It's a love-hate relationship.
Oh, I hear you. I totally get that. Now you took a pretty good hit with all the stuff of 2020.
Yeah.
You had to downsize your business a little bit. How's that affected you personally, and where are you kind of thinking about going from this point?
Um, well, personally, like I was telling you, it was sort of a season of elation, actually, after having to let my crew go. Um, except for maybe the first day, and and that weekend of just having to let them know that
Mm-hmm.
that's what was going to happen. Um, but after that, like I cut my insurance by 2/3. I got rid of my workers' comp because I don't have to have it now that
Yep.
I'm like the one doing the work and the owner.
Yep.
Uh, I'm selling a van after this in a few hours. So downsized that way, sort of grabbed all the equipment out of it. Now I sort of have an abundance of equipment, you know, enough probably for 4 people to go out and hammer a business. But to really like what I realized over the last few years was that to make the business kind of viable, you have to be bringing in a minimum of $1,800 a day to have, and for me, living in Denver, to have employees and to be legitimate with everything that I have, you know what I mean?
Yep. Yep. Cover all your overhead and
All
insurance and
overhead, because as soon as you level up, it's like everything gets bigger.
yep.
It's like because you're doing bigger jobs now, you know, unless all that you're doing is residential and you just can somehow continue to double W-9 your employees or whatever, which is one way to do it. Like if you're going big commercial, you have to have workers' comp. They're
Yep.
going to ask for it, and they won't leave you alone until they have it. And they won't leave you alone until they have it every year or every 6 months. And so I'm always talking to my broker, you know, like, hey, can you, you know, fill them out and put them on our insurance and, you know, send them a card, an Accord card with their name on it, whatever. As soon as you start doing that, man, it's just so expensive. So you have to bring in that minimum if you want to be able to pay yourself and
Yep.
survive. And if you
Yep.
don't, then what's the point? Are we just out here for fun? Like, yeah, it's fun, but kids got to eat.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And
so
that
you got
was,
to be doing that.
yeah, and that was where I was at. You know, I had ran a big company for 7 years,
Wow.
and you know, we had 160 employees, I think, at the top right before it sold,
Wow.
and
That's crazy.
the headaches, the
Yeah.
the long hours.
Hmm.
Um, I'm making more now with just myself and my daughter working than I was making then.
I am too.
You know, and
Yeah,
and
I am
and
too.
last year at the Huge, I did a class on how to be profitable as an owner operator. And one of the things that I talk about is don't let people make you feel bad because you
Yeah,
don't have 10 trucks on the road. If that's not what you want to
exactly.
do, then
Exactly.
you find your version of success and you do it.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. There was a family that was there, a father, son, and daughter. And I think they had another son that didn't come but was part of the business.
Okay.
And after the class, Celeste and I were just walking around looking at stuff at the convention, and she came up to us in tears.
Oh, wow.
And she's just like, you know, I finally feel like we're legitimate. You
Right.
know, for all these years, I felt like if we didn't do all this big stuff, we were just nobodies and
Yeah.
nobody cared about us. But we're
Right.
happy and we like what we do and we like our family business and it's great. And
Right.
so, you know, if that's what makes you happy and makes you the money that you need,
Right.
there's nothing wrong with it. Absolutely
Oh, for
nothing wrong.
sure. For sure. Like love what you have, you
Yep.
know? If you can't learn to love what you have, you're not going to love what you get when it finally comes, if you ever get there. You
Yep.
know what I mean? Like the media,
100%.
movies, whatever, they all kind of have you chasing this corporate idea that you should be striving to never stop growing
Yep.
and only be bigger and better, you know, and like taking over this and that and the other. And it's like you could still do all that and just not have that much money, like you were saying. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
you know, you see like the contractor on the side of the road who's doing all the work himself, but he rolls up in a new truck. You know what I mean? He's got nice equipment. He's got a decent house. He's providing for his family.
Yep.
He likes what he does. And like that's the place where I'm at right now. And I'm at a point where I don't know if I'm ever going to hire another employee again. Like
I'm right there with you.
it would have to take a lot of special circumstances, you know?
Well,
Like,
I still struggle with it sometimes because we've gotten more opportunity this year
yeah,
than we've had ever.
sure.
And part of it related to some of the medical work that we do, because again, we do a lot more than just window cleaning. But
Sure.
I'm struggling. Like, okay, how? What part of this am I going to turn down, or am I just dumb for not expanding and growing back into some other stuff.
Yeah.
The healthcare system we work for has a huge need for a janitorial company that can actually do the work. I know how to run it.
Yeah.
So I don't want to.
No.
And I sit back and I think, okay, entrepreneur, why am I not taking this opportunity?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to.
I don't want to. I want to do other things with my time.
Yep. I don't want to get the calls at 2:00 in the morning that nobody showed up to a building and it's the weekend and we want to hang out with friends and, oh, hey, guess what? We've got to go clean 4 buildings.
Yeah. No, thanks.
You know, just not going to do it. So, again, the entrepreneur side of us kind of fights, I think, our logical brain where we're like, hey, money, business, why are we not doing this? But
yeah,
again, what's the most important thing in life to us? And for me, has become, we were talking, before we got started, that I had a rule that I didn't work any weekends.
Right.
Unless, absolutely necessary. And here we are 4.5 months into working 7 days a week.
Yeah.
But obviously
I would go crazy.
Yeah. No,
I worked like 2 weekends in a row and I'm like, I'm going to shoot someone.
Right. Well, there was a time I had to, fortunately, we've kind of got it set up now where I hired my daughter's boyfriend part-time so that her and him can go and take at least 1 day of the week at the hospital. Because we were about 3 months into it.
Yeah.
Nonstop, 7 days a week.
Oh,
and I was just, I could feel my head. I was not in a good place. I knew it. I was grumpy. I was getting irritated at everything. And I said, I got to have a break. So we got it set up. And it was amazing what that 1 day off did.
Oh, man.
I just got to decompress so much just from not having to be there. So we've got it fairly ironed out now. And, if it wasn't for the fact that, I believe what we're doing there is a good service to the community because that hospital, their COVID numbers are down. They're not near where they thought they would be.
Yeah.
I would probably look at like, let's back this down to 5 days a week, but
yeah, for sure. Or just start charging more.
Yeah.
Just up your prices. That's kind of one thing that I've done right now because I'm like, bro, I'm like a ninja at this.
Right.
When you get this far in the game and you've cleaned so many windows and touched a billion screens, like you and I, like you can just go in and slay a building and whistle a tune while you're doing it. I listen to books. I'm listening to Gun, Drums, and Steel right now. And I just try and educate myself while I'm cleaning. But to
absolutely.
just be able to go in and kill it, like I'm charging more for these buildings, and like I'm not feeling bad about it either, because I know what it takes, and I've trained enough people and seen enough people try to clean windows that I know it's an artisan trade.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
this isn't
absolutely.
janitorial. Like you can't just scrub harder and expect a window to come clean. It's an art form, basically, except instead of creating something, we're making it disappear.
Sure. Good way to look at it. Yeah.
And that's an art in and of itself,
Yeah, the hospital, when they did their new addition, they asked the contractor asked us to bid on the construction cleanup, and I turned it down. I didn't want anything to do with it. One, because I knew the reputation of the contractor, and
sure,
I figured I would never get paid. But two, where we were at the time, it was probably going to be too much work anyway. So we turned it down. They had somebody else come in. They butchered it, and so now we're kind of, I don't want to say redoing the construction cleanup, but essentially we're kind of picking up a lot of the stuff that they didn't do, but now it's for the hospital, and they don't.
Are you charging for it?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good.
And they're not even bidding it out.
Nice.
They're not even calling anybody because the work.
You know what you're doing.
Yeah. They want it done. They want it done right.
Yeah.
And just, hey, put this on the books. And let me know when you can get to it.
Yep. That's awesome. That's
a good feeling. Yeah, that's a really good feeling, and that's part of one of the reasons that I like to stay small. Mm-hmm. I have ultimate control over everything that gets done, and the quality of it gets in. If something doesn't come out right, it's 100% my fault. So it's real easy to take ownership of it and just go out, fix it, make it right, and just get another loyal customer from it. So.
Oh, totally. And the relationships that you form with them, like I'm friends with some of my customers on Facebook.
Yeah, me too.
You know what I mean? And then they recommend you out to their friends, and it's just one thing after the next, hopefully. But I don't feel bad charging more right now, and I'm at a point where I can work 4 days a week. If I can bring in $700 a day, like that'll be rad.
That'll
be rad.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you were able to take that in stride and actually turn the negative into a positive, because I know when things like that initially happen, sometimes it takes a toll on us mentally. We're like, I failed.
Yeah.
What didn't I do right? How could I have prevented this? But ultimately, there is that saying that if you're not growing, then you're dying. But I tend to look at it more from the standpoint, if you're not growing in some aspect, whether it's the numbers on the business or it's the number of high quality clients that you have, it's yourself personally, how am I growing? How have I increased my knowledge? Become
what
more
are you
of an
going to
expert?
learn from it?
Exactly. As long as you're doing that, some type of growth in those regards, then that's where the success comes in. It's not related to the size of the wallet. It's not related to the P&L of the business necessarily. I mean, we have to make a profit, but all the profit in the world doesn't make you happy if you're, as you said, if you're not happy to begin with.
Yeah, then you won't be happy then when it comes.
No.
And that was one thing at the start when it first happened, that I was a little bit depressed and I did feel a little bit like a failure, you know what I mean, for those first few days. But then the next week, I looked at the work and I was spreading everything out and wasn't even like really thinking about getting there. And as soon as I got there and started working, man, the whole week just changed. I just felt so happy. Like I couldn't remember feeling that happy in the last like 4 or 5 years. I'm just, it was almost elating, and I was like, what am I have no worries right now. I'm my only worry. That's it. It's fantastic.
Yep.
And like
totally
it's like you're saying, like you gotta learn from your failures. That's the only difference between like the business that fails and the other one is they fail maybe once or a couple times and they're like, oh, I'm a failure, instead of, oh, what can I learn from this? I think failure is a good thing. I usually have to break something like 3 or 4 times before I figure out how it works, right? Then I either go and get a new one and I use it perfectly and can teach others, or I fix it, and it works even better a lot of times.
Yeah, that's been my stand on it is I use the B analogy, BEE, believe in yourself, expect failure, and embrace failure. Because failure is really the only way that we truly learn. We can do something 100 different times and did it the wrong way and nothing bad ever happened. But that last time that we do it and something bad happens, that's the one that we remember.
Yeah. So and that's when you learn.
Exactly. That's the only time that we truly learn. How many times as a kid did the parents tell you, don't touch the hot stove? Well, when did you learn not to touch the hot stove? When you finally put your hand on it.
Exactly.
So that's how I've always tried to look at it. And again, I think in that entrepreneurial spirit, we tend to get a little hard on ourselves and we're like, well, we don't have the option to fail.
Right.
Ultimately, we do. And again, sometimes we look at it and say, like you said in the beginning, you look at it as a failure, but in reality, it wasn't a failure at all. Yeah.
It's just a lesson, that day's lesson. Like you're not going to learn anything unless you fail.
Yep. Absolutely.
The important part is just getting back up, waking up the next day, even though you feel like shit, and, throwing your gloves on, putting your mask on, going out, cleaning some glass. I have this inner monologue sometimes. I'll be just sort of working on something or just kind of get stuck over here and this voice will pop up. What you're not doing right now is cleaning a window. And that's what makes you money. So then I'll kind of just be like, all right, and get my butt in gear and run in and go, clean the freaking window. I'm not getting, I'm not paying myself to tighten up my univalve right now, or
Right.
do this or that, the other. I can do that on the day that I'm not working and cleaning windows,
Yep. No,
So,
I do the exact same thing. It's like, well, let me make sure I got the truck organized. Well, that's not an actual paying job right now. So let's go
yeah,
get some windows done. And
yeah, exactly.
successful, what I always tell my daughter and anybody that I've ever trained is successful people do what needs to be done no matter how they feel.
Yeah.
There's a lot of days that we all wake up and we just go, oh, I'm not feeling it today. I would rather just sit here and do nothing, or for you, maybe go climb a rock, or for me, go work on a car, whatever it is.
Oh, yeah.
And you go, no, time to go clean windows.
Yeah, for sure. I try and schedule every now and then, if I can, get a mountain job. I love
Oh,
going up there. Yeah.
I bet that's
Yeah.
really cool.
It's just like, maybe I don't have enough time because it's too big of a job to go rock climbing afterwards, but just cleaning in the setting, it's totally worth it.
I've seen some of those pictures that you posted, and it's
Yeah.
gorgeous.
Oh yeah. Yep.
It's got to give you
Yep.
a little bit of serene feeling to be in that kind of environment.
It's so peaceful. It just doesn't even feel like work,
Yep, I can
And then, like
imagine.
I said, the customers up there, they love me, because you talk to them, you do a good job. It's like, for
Yep,
you and me, it's not that hard to do a good job. For us, it's easy. And
yep.
and that's one of the best parts about it, is that I feel at peace when I'm doing that. You know what I mean?
I totally understand that. Yep, yep.
You're
Again,
into
like
the
I said,
flow.
I've got I've got total control over it. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna do exactly what I promised I would do, and that's just gonna make things a lot better and a lot easier going
Yeah.
forward.
And it's easy to do it. It's easy to do a good job.
Yeah,
It's harder to do a bad job.
yeah. Because if for nothing else, that inner dialogue that you talk about,
Uh-huh.
if there was something I skipped, like that window's way up in the corner, nobody's ever gonna look at that. The rest of the job that I'm doing, I'm like, go back and do the window. Go back and do the window. Go back and do the window.
Really? No one's ever gonna go back and look, huh? You sure about that?
That's the one they're gonna look out of, right?
Yeah.
And then back I go, and okay.
Yep.
And
Oh,
then
exactly.
yeah. So I think that's that inner dialogue that keeps us balanced sometimes, that we got to have.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. And anytime, sometimes it's a real quiet voice, and it's like, "Hey, did you bring that thing?" And I'm like, "Nah, you should probably bring that thing. If I don't bring the thing, I need the thing. So I always just bring the thing now,
Yeah.
whatever it is, no matter what it is. It's like, oh, did I bring my bag? Yeah, I don't know what's in there. There's so much stuff in here. I got some medicine. I got gum because my breath stinks at times. And medications if I need them. I have super glue. I have, a selfie stick. If I get hungry, I have a builder's bar. And this is all stuff that I think about for myself ahead of time. But in the moment, you don't really know what's in here. There's just a voice inside your head saying, hey, you should maybe bring that. And now I've not brought it enough times that I always bring whatever it is. That the voice is sort of like, bring the thing.
Kind of like you'll never go back on a lift again without rope.
I will never go back on a lift again without rope. No.
Bring that thing. Bring it.
Bring the thing. Yeah. And that was totally a day where the voice was like, hey, you should bring the thing. And I was like, come on. I've never had to rap out of a lift before. Yeah. That was the day I had to rap out of a lift.
That's it. That's when it's going to be. That's when it's going to happen. So I think that's going to be our new thing now, is bring the thing. Did you bring the thing?
Yep.
Yeah. I like that. Well, I tell you what, man, I really appreciate your time, and I think we've got some great information. There's a lot of differences a lot of times in, like the areas that we're in, and what I do here in Michigan versus what you do in Colorado. We talked about that when I was talking to Gabe, and the differences in where he's at in Arizona. So I think it's going to be some great information for people to take away. I appreciate your time and being part of the group and giving us some insight.
Absolutely.
And Yeah. Yeah. And I think I nominated you in that push-up challenge too. So
I mean, I already do push-ups like during the week. I can if you want me to, but
yeah, it's just open to everybody. You know, I just when I got nominated, I'm like, oh, I did this. I think it was 4 years ago, and it was the 22 for the veteran suicide awareness.
okay.
And I mean, it was good on me. It strengthened me up a little bit, you know, and
Oh
there
yeah,
was
no,
nothing
push-ups are
wrong with
really
it.
essential. They're like
Yeah.
incredibly important to me in rock climbing,
Oh, I
um,
bet.
for shoulder stabilization. So that's like
Yep.
just part of my training routine each week.
So I just thought, well, you know what? Instead of doing it every single day and nominating a different person every day and
Yeah,
dragging it all out,
just doing it all at once.
I'm just throwing 25 names in there, and if anybody wants to participate beyond that, that's cool. Just
Sure.
kind of a way to try to keep people in a little bit more of a healthy mindset because that's sometimes we kind of forget about that when we're going and going and going and working and
Oh
last
man,
thing.
yeah, that's true. That's like one thing the Japanese have on us, is they'll just start every day with like a weird, crazy warm-up routine. And
Yeah,
that's what I do. Like when I go out in the street and I'm feeling stiff or whatever, I'm cleaning some windows, I'll just stop before I even do anything and just like do some circles, and like stretch and just like work out that old man body.
right.
But push-ups, for everything in life, it's like probably one of the most important exercises you can do for
Yeah, because it hits so many different muscles just for something so
yeah.
simple.
Uh-huh.
It's something you can, and pretty much you can do anywhere.
Yeah. Well, thanks for raising that awareness, man.
Heck yeah, heck yeah. So again, thanks for your time. We'll look forward to putting this up, and anybody's got questions, we're going to have this on the group, so you'll be able to chime in there, and
Yeah.
yep. So
Happy
I
to
look
answer anything.
awesome. All right, man. Thanks again for your time. We'll talk to you.
Yep. Take care.